Talk to Joe on 0818 715 815.
Eilish na Genghis, Eilish and Monaghan. What's your connection with the late Queen Elizabeth?
Hi, Joe. Eilish McGuinness, Oscar Liz McGuinness in English.
Yeah.
So I have a possum merino business. I was in Scotland at a show selling warm gloves and socks and stuff. And this lady, who I didn't know at the time was a member of the royal family, rocked into my shop asking me about special warm gloves for an old lady who was very cold.
Okay.
Anyway, that was grand. She procrastinated quite a bit. She was very posh. And anybody who knows me around with me Kiwi country, I was mad to do business. And I said to her, will you ever stop procrastinating and buy your friend the goddamn gloves? But anyway, the crack started and we started talking. It turned out she's Lady Harriet Bowes Lyon's 22nd goddaughter to the Queen. So anyway, off she went with the gloves for Queen Elizabeth, so she had very cold hands. And I received a letter from Queen Elizabeth about a month or so later. But then I was asked by the same Harriet Bowes Lyon that the Queen wanted me to write an account of myself and my life. So based on the little bit of conversation we had at the Highland Show in Scotland. So about 4 or 5 months later, I sat down and I penned off a letter, wrote it very quick, didn't even spell check it, and I whacked it off and off it went. But at Christmas 2018, I received a second letter from the Queen, but the middle paragraph, or one of the paragraphs, was really quite remarkable. And it goes like this, but there's more background to it. But it said, I think you would like to know, Her Majesty was deeply moved by your kind words of her visit to Ireland in 2011 and greatly appreciated the sentiments you expressed. The Queen was glad to be reminded of that special trip and of the warm welcome she received everywhere she went. So that's grand, that's 2018. So fast forward to 2019, June, back at the Highland Show, in runs. She doesn't even walk. She ran in the marquee, Harriet Bowes Lyon. She's only like this wee small pixie woman. She's gorgeous. And she grabbed me. She literally grabbed me. There was other people in the shop witnessed it. She kissed me once. She kissed me twice. She was just absolutely... I was laughing. I think you don't do that kind of thing with royalty. But anyway, she said, oh, my God, your letter. She said, Her Majesty was so enthralled with your letter. She read it and she was so emotional. She laughed and she cried. And she said to us, she said, this is the most emotional, what's this? She said, the most emotional and the most memorable letter I have ever received. Now, I'm just telling you, that's what she said.
And what did you say in the letter? Obviously, you talked about...
the letter's too long.
Okay, but you wrote along. But well done.
I gave her, she wanted a history, so I told her about growing up in Monaghan and ending up in New Zealand, that my great-grandmother was a cook, by the way, in Buckingham Palace, but my great-grandfather took a shine to her and they ended up in Monaghan working for the Rossmores and whatever.
Brilliant.
So the
Great
funny
story.
thing...
Great story.
I was living in New Zealand. You've interviewed me before, but the day I got on a plane to go back to New Zealand, the day I arrived back in New Zealand, Queen Elizabeth arrived in Ireland. And I was really ripping that I hadn't forward planning done that I could be here for it, right? So back in the day in 2011, you had to pay for every megabyte and gigabyte of whatever you used on the internet. So it probably cost me $3,500–4,000 because I sat up for the whole 4 nights in New Zealand watching the live feed in RTE while you guys were watching it happening here daytime in Ireland. And I find it fierce emotional. And I cried a couple of times. And I was looking at Sean Rocks, introducing her in the castle. Sean Rocks, a couple of years older than me. We grew up as neighbours and friends. And anyway, so part of the letter, it's too long, but I'll give you the wee bit.
Okay.
Whatever. Let me go. I give out to her, actually. Part of it I'm giving out to her. I went, the day you arrived in Ireland in May 2011, I arrived back in New Zealand. I had married a Kiwi, curiously called Paddy Doyle, origins also out of Wexford in 1856. And I was living and working there, blah, blah, blah. I told her my background in theatre arts and music and a teacher. So then I go, you made me cry. You made me cry many times over the course of those memorable and profoundly emotional and historic days. Indeed, and then I explained about I'm watching it in the middle of the night and explained about Sean Rocks. So then I said, when you stood up to speak and uttered those immortal, phonetically perfect words, I was overwhelmed. Very few people here in Ireland could pronounce those words as perfectly as you did. And I instantly recognised the effort you had made to perfect these 4 words. I cried, I wept deeply. I had shed tears of the wreath laying in the garden of remembrance, not like me at all. And I cried when I saw you with the horses in Coolmore. Up around these parts, we were reared tough and resilient, more akin to your British stiff upper lip than the native Gael. And as you progress through your wonderful speech, which you, Miss Heaney, and President Mary McAleese and all of you, I cannot explain to you the wave of emotion and the restorative healing that came over me. Sitting in my lonely office in the middle of the night in Palmerston North for 4 nights, I will treasure the fact that I could witness these truly significant events unfolding live in the opposite end of the world. I know for certain that this was the reaction of most of the population of Ireland and of so many of the diaspora scattered all over the world.
And that's what prompted her to send that beautiful letter back to you. Okay. So, Eilish, good evening, that's Elizabeth McGuinness. Eilish, Slán.